welcome back to this episode of Transitioning Humanitarians Live with Viki. Viki, you can hear me, okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes. Hi, Asel. Hello, everyone.
Yes, so we're finally back and we want to talk to you about designing your life intentionally the way you want to. And that topic has been like in our minds for some time. And this month we wanted to really like conceptualize all of this together for you and today give you the overview of how we see it or how we have done it ourselves and how we help our clients to do that, and also how can you do it for yourself if you choose to. So let's start, Vicky, with the maybe our own experience of how we have done it so that it can be like more relatable to people to know what has been for us. What would you say?
Okay, yeah. Very often, like, I ask my clients, like, how many times have you written a strategy, or how many times have you written this or that? But we rarely do something similar for our own lives. And this is when several years ago I came across this sort of a design format of design my life, where I really became very interested in this concept, and I designed it for myself. It's not updated, to be frank, but I think it's a fantastic way of looking at your life holistically, because I think you will agree with me that most of our clients, or most of our colleagues, what they are asking about is mostly career. How do I, transition in my career? How do I do? And most of the questions are regarding the career, but actually one of the far greater questions that we are not really dealing with, or people don't have the first reflex to deal with, is to look at all the other chapters of the life, such as private life, such as partnerships, such as social life, such as finances, such as physical health, mental health, your vision for your life. So all these different parameters that people don't tend to look at, and or tend to look at it as a secondary. But we know that all of it makes one life. All of these parts are super important. And sometimes when we discuss, as when I coach, I realize that so many of their worries or questions actually stem not from the career question, but something completely different, different parts of. So this is why I would say I think it's really important that we look at our life holistically, and like design each of these elements specifically. That would be from me. What about you? How do you look at this question, Asel?
Absolutely. So I was thinking that my experience has been also starting with the work in the sense of what is it that I don't want to be doing anymore, right? Or what situation I don't want to bring myself into anymore. And at that time, it was my depression and burnout. And I was so tired of living that life that I told myself, okay, what is it that I'm not wanting anymore? What are the things that I don't want to be suffering anymore for? Or what's worth suffering for, or whatever. These are the questions that got me started to ask like questions of what is it that actually I want to do, right? So I think that's always how like design questions start for me like this. You have this like nagging thing that keep bothering you, or nagging thing that you haven't done, or even if you're focused on one thing, you know that that's not how life all is. It's just one element of it, right? So that's why I think that those type of like moments, questions are so key for us to start then asking ourselves like, okay, if I look at this, but what about the other part, and then that's how I got to looking at all of my life entirely. And I think I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't ironically for burnout at the time, where like when you really have no other choice but do something about it, right? And even if you are in that situation, or even if it's not in that situation, I think it's so like crucial for all of us to have the intention of, is this how we're going, or it's just we're going by autopilot and we have forgotten all the other things that we actually want to or are important to us. So that's why, Vicky, I totally agree with you that even though people think about one thing, it's actually without the all the other elements. This one thing, even if we fixed it, it wouldn't bring all the joy that we want to, right? So it will be only like part of the solution, not all of the solution.
Yeah.
So, having said that, what is would you say like the? I guess when we say things like holistic, it's easy for our brains to be like, "Oh, who has time for that?" Or, I mean, I'm already having lots of to-do lists, and I will not add this onto my list or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, our brains will be so easy to dismiss it or just say, oh, it's too hard or too
Mhm.
overwhelming, whatever it is, right? So that's why, in order not to do that, what could be like the easiest way to enter in this conversation with ourselves? How
Mhm.
would you say?
Well, I would maybe ask myself a question: what is important in my life?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you will realize that okay, the work is important, but what else? My partner, my family, where I live, my house, my environment, where my kids go to school, or like loads of different things that are probably even more important than the work. And I think these, then I would start working along those categories. Like, how would I want to, like, very often, and when we, because we are talking about transitioning, I hear sometimes people, well, say, well, during certain period it was a bit lonely, so yeah, so I think it's very important to also draft or like look at this social life, which I think, well, I have never seen, I have never met a client who would come to me and say, look, I want to change my social life. I think nobody has ever said that. Everyone says, I want to do something along career or but never, nobody has said, I want a different social life. But actually, very often, this is one of the things that needs to be changed. Like, how do you, it's when you move to a certain country, when you move back even to your country or wherever you are, you want to be social. And most people want to engage with like-minded people or get to know other people. So I think also this is, I put myself an objective, right? I put myself, maybe it was not going to work for everyone to say, okay, I'll put myself an objective, but a vision, like, I want to be more engaged with people, or I want to be a member of a music club. I don't know, whatever is that you like. But I think it's not paying attention to these questions that are important is going to result into lower quality of your life, and life that will be less enjoyable for you. That's what I would say. What
Hmm.
about you? How would you go about this?
So I was thinking that that definitely is like one of the questions I think that bring up a lot of what we really want or what's really important to us. I also want to speak to those humanitarians who keep telling themselves that they don't know, right? And I think lately I've been speaking a lot about this, but noticing that I don't know will be just not leading you to any answers, any wisdom you might have, and therefore like get you feeling stuck the whole time, and that's not the situation to be in. So for those of you who are in that situation and you just like, yes, I know what's important, but I can't really have that, or I don't really know, and they can wait, or whatever the thing that you're telling yourself, then I would suggest for you to also like move backwards, meaning what are the things you don't want to have, or what are the things that you can't tolerate anymore, right? You can also approach it from that angle, like I did back in the day, because I didn't really have that uh, tools, I guess, in that moment to say, okay, what are the all the things I want, or but I was just telling myself these are the things I don't want to tolerate anymore, and here is why, right? I mean, in my case, I had already burned out, so I didn't really need to convince myself a lot. So you can also approach it from that way. So one way, like Vika was saying, what's important. The other way is also what is it that you don't want to have anymore.
Yeah.
And as soon as you like relieve yourself from all of the things that you don't want to have, then you will have a
Yeah.
space for you then to say, okay, I have the space now to think about, okay, what are the things that I actually am wanting or desiring that I just didn't give a voice to them because I was so busy trying to survive, or I was so busy trying to go to the next thing and the next thing, right? So that's why you can easily approach it from whichever the way. And the other way that you can approach it is that's maybe less intellectual if you want to, but more on the emotional side of just feeling like these are the feelings I'm so tired of having and I don't want to have. So feelings can be excellent indicators as well, or vice versa, right? You can also say, this is what I want to feel. Like a lot of clients tell me that they want to really feel fulfillment, satisfaction, or connection to their purpose, right? This is what we want to feel, and it's a very human thing to do. So if we're not feeling it, then how do we get to feel them more? Is it here or it's somewhere else? Is it with someone or it is with purpose, whatever it is, right? So you can always play around with things so that you don't get stuck in somewhere. And also, even if your brain tells you that you're stuck, you can also like challenge that to say, okay, how is that true and how is that not true and how can I go around it?
Yeah.
So once we approach it, then we get, of course, so curious as to looking at all parts of our lives, right? I think you also had this experience of like, oh my God, I can look at all the areas, and at some point it sounds like, there's so many things to do or so many things to fix, or like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe that I was so broken, or, like some also might say that they're damaged or they're lost, right? So these are the things that we start telling ourselves,
Yeah.
which then signal that we are not wanting to move forward because of all the things that we feel like we're overwhelmed. So,
Yeah.
how do you address that, Vicky?
I think one of the things that what you're saying, that being forced to look at these things once you have a burnout, or you go through a very, very excruciatingly difficult or tiring situation. I think one of the first thing is really, and I understand it's not always, we don't always have the luxuries. Take time and relax, because when you are stressed out, when you are anxious, there are no good decisions that come out of this, or no good exploration. That's unfortunately, it is what it is. So if you are really stressed out and anxious, you're not going to take good decisions, because decisions that comes from those places, or places of fear, or like, I need to decide right now because tomorrow they're asking me. Well, go with your gut feeling, go with whatever is best for you. But I would highly recommend to take time to explore these things and be with these feelings, because I didn't necessarily have the reaction that you described, but it is because I was taking my time. I literally took time off work, and I just had time, and I looked at all these categories, and I was like, it's the first time I'm ever even thinking about this consciously. Of course, these subjects came here and there, but also questions about health. As people age, the health question becomes more and more important. And I think most people consciously don't think about what health situation would you want to have when you are 60 or 70. But I think every step that we take every day is leading us to certain kind of health. So I think it's really just small conscious steps that we can do, so that we are going to reach the life that we want to. So in terms of advice, I would say, if you have the opportunity, take your time, or just block some time for one part of this. Not everything at the same time, of course. To look all those things, it's overwhelming, all these categories. But just start with one, and maybe you start with one that you feel most inclined to, or maybe you start with the one that you feel most curious about, such as exploring my social life. Like, who do I want to be surrounded with? Do I want to be surrounded with people from my work? all the time, it's fine. There is no judgment about it, but just think about it. Or do I want to maybe other people, be with other friends, etc. So I think it's very, do I want to live in a village? Do I want to live in a city? Where am I going to? So I think the second thing I would say, let's dream big. Because the reality always makes it shrink a little, but we do need to dream big. Don't be limited by the it's impossible, it's impossible. It's okay, that life will show you what is possible, but just design the big picture, and then you will shape it as to where you can go and what is maybe out of reach for next 1 year. So that's what how I would look at that. What about you, Asel?
Yes, I totally agree. And I think I've done a lot of the things that you're telling. And I think what I did most of the time is I combined my work and outside of work doing all of this. So that's why I definitely also did like category by category at some point. And I remember thinking to myself that it felt like a bit organizing things of what are the things that I am actually wanting, what are the things that I'm not wanting anymore, and how do I already start integrating certain things like healthy eating habits, for instance, right? So these were, I think, some of the things that I already started. So that's why one of the things I think that could be helpful for people to say that whatever you have realized and you've decided that this is not what you want or this is what you want, start integrating little by little already into your routine now wherever you are without making all the big changes,
Yeah.
because then you start giving your brain this idea that you are on the like process of changing or on the process of living the life intentionally, right? Like the way I would compare to the language learning is when you start learning certain words and greetings and all of this, you start using in the language, right? You start incorporating it into a language, and your brain is like, oh, now we're learning something, we're practicing something, right? So it start getting more motivation and more like a snowball effect, rather than if you just stay in this theorizing mode of, oh, I could do this and I could do that, or I can't do this and I can't do that. And then if you like keep in that mode so much, your brain will want to find lots of arguments why it won't work and all of these things. At least my brain does it a lot. So that's why, in order not to give too much ammunition to that brain, you can start like saying, okay, I don't want to be the person who like works until 11 p.m. every day, right? For instance, this is not what I want to be doing. Then, okay, how can you be already the person who can stop at work when you want to and then go home and do other things?
Yeah.
And this little by little, you start shifting and you start seeing the changes. Then you get this momentum of, oh, apparently I can do a lot more things.
Mm-hmm.
And that could also be the time where you start dreaming big of, okay, if I radically wanted my life to be different, for instance, right, then how would that look like? What would be like so essential?
Mm-hmm.
The way that I thought at the time was that my for me so essential is that I am able to choose where to live and with whom to spend time, meaning like spending time with my loved ones, right? That was like so essential. And then I was thinking, okay, how do I do that to make that happen, right? So it's like all of this questions, I think, start making us then create this like picture
Mm-hmm.
little by little, and then we get to the place where we start like, okay, now I'm able to do something about it, or I want to try it out, and then you start doing it, right? So maybe we need to also speak to people who have done it and then failed, let's say in quotes, right? Meaning that they tried and didn't work, and then they're back to where they started, and then now they're so like in this place of, well, designing a life the way you want to does not work because I have tried, and in the end I'm back, and the whole story that we have around that. So how do we like encourage those people to try it again?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say, Vicky?
Well, just like we always said about the failure, is that there is no, you can't go back because you already have the lesson that you learned, you have the observations and the experience. So I think there is so much that one has learned. Like maybe some of the experiences you have, like, well, maybe I didn't even want this, or maybe it's like, okay, well, next time I will try this. I think it's really, I mean, yes, I always say, after something like this, you need to take care of yourself. You need to recharge the batteries if you feel that you're depleted, because of course with the depleted batteries there is only that much is possible. But I would say, the look at the design of the life, because the second question I always ask is not only how do I what are the different objectives in each of the category, but why do I want it? Why do I want it? What is it allowing me to do? Who am I becoming? And I think this part of the question is even more important, because it's not that, let's say, I want to be in good health. Well, I want to be in good health, and that's where I'm going to, I don't know, do sports twice a week, 3 times a week, eat healthily, whatever that is. I want it to be so that I can be fit until long and I can serve until. So I would really, again, this is a larger piece of work that you might not do overnight, or in 1 hour, and it takes time. But I think it's very crucial to answer the second question, why do I want those things? And really elaborate on the what you are feeling. I want to do this because, and I want to have this health because it will allow me to to be this, or I want to be meeting these kinds of people, or be friends with, because etc etc. So I think those that is an equally important part of the thinking process. And again, as you say, you don't have to do all of those things at once. Just do one. Take one category. And I would really invite people not to start with the work, because with the job we are always thinking about the career, the job, and how do I would really invite people maybe to think of my partnership or my family, or like some other category that is equally important for you, but you sort of tend to maybe neglect it subconsciously.
So that's a very good point, because yesterday I was coaching one of my clients and this topic came up, was that she was telling me that she's ready to fight for the purpose no matter what the
Mhm.
difficulties are around it, right? So for instance, the difficulties we're talking about were like colleagues that are difficult to work with, or the boss difficult to
Mhm.
work with, or the government and all the things.
Right.
But
Yeah.
still, she was saying that, well, the purpose is so worth it that I would, of course, like put up with it or
Hmm.
deal with it somehow, right? And I was telling her that why not think about your goal of, like, she wants to create a family and partnership. And I was telling her why we're not equally fighting for that purpose of creating family and
Yeah.
creating partnership
Yeah.
as much as we're willing to do that with work, right?
Yeah.
Why not we're not doing that, and why not do both of them as well? If you are like someone
Yeah.
who says, no, my work is like my identity, or this is who I am. For many of us, I think that is how it is, right? So even if that is the case, if you know how to fight for that purpose at work, you can also do that for your personal life,
Yeah.
and to have that as equally important and get going as much as the work one. So that's why I like, no matter how many times we have failed or whatever the experience we have had in the past, I would still not rely on that experience in the sense of like letting it hold us to not go, right? But rather, okay, I have gained so much experience. Like Viki was saying, we can always treat it as a continuous
Mhm.
thing instead of, okay, that was a huge failure and now I'm never going back or whatever, right? But rather, okay, this is a learning experience. Now we are like taken care of. Now we're rested. Now we're ready to go again. And this time we will make changes in this different ways. And I have done it myself as well. I resigned once and then came back. And that was, I think I talked about this so many times in these episodes, but I think what was so key for me at the time to realize was that the reason why I was leaving back in the day, the first time I left, was because I really wanted to avoid having those difficult situations or looking at certain issues that I had. Um, and that's why I was like so trying to run away from my work back in the day. And then I realized this time, if I'm going and leaving, I will not be running away. I will not be just trying to cut the cord and saying, oh my God, as soon as I get out, I'm happy and da 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 da.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that, right? I wanted to complete and then go somewhere else. And I really worked through those things, through my issues throughout those years after I returned.
Mhm.
And then it was actually a good one, so that then I could say, okay, I'm no longer running away. I'm making this conscious decision because I want to do something else, because the things that I want to do here I can't really do, and therefore I want to do something else, and therefore I'm going for it. And you can also use it, that opportunity, to say, okay, how can you like use whatever you consider as a failure in quotes to say you were given this chance again for a reason.
Yeah.
You can now work through whatever the things that you want to work through. One of the things that I really work through on myself is being the first person who can do all the things that she wants outside of this career work.
Mm-hmm.
And I left, I think, my job believing that that's me really, and that helped me a lot in my journey. And that's why I really want to like encourage people to also build your trust, or build your like core of who you are, of
Mm-hmm.
believing what you can achieve outside, and then go for it, right? So I know that we have given a lot of like what can come up in the process of thinking about designing and all of this. So into the design itself now, Vicky, anything that you want to talk about in terms of what are the elements of it that you can look at it, even though you touched upon it, but anything else that you want to say?
Yeah, I think really, I mean, you can put as many elements as you want, really. But I would really encourage colleagues to have at least really sort of 8 elements, like right, like your career, your financial side, your health, your family, your physical health, physical and mental well-being, your social circle, and overall your spirituality. Very often spirituality, or if or religion or whatever resonates. I think it's definitely one of the category nobody pays attention to, I think, from our group, and yet it is important. We are all driven by something that is deep inside of us, that we believe, deeply believe, right? Whether it is God, or whether it's something else, whether it's stars, whatever it is, it's inside of us, and we don't pay attention. So I think, and if this part of our lives is not satisfied or is not being paid, we also feel down. So I think it's really important to sort of give sort of a look at all these parts and see, okay, I want to work on these two right now, and the others are fine, or etc. So I really think that that would be probably the direction I would advise colleagues to go, and start from there and answer to your own question. How do I want to feel? Where do I want to be in this category, and why do I want it? So that's what I would say.
Amazing. So I would add to that by saying that maybe a lot of the things that I looked at it was also like mostly related to who I wanted to be. And I think that also came from this observation that I have made back in the day of how I was not really true to what I wanted to do or what I believed it needs to be done, and like feeling like out of integrity at some point, right? So that's why like my focus was a lot when I was thinking and designing my own life was, okay, like who do I want to be, that then has all the other elements around, but like focusing on me being the person who then can create and handle and manage all of the other things. And that's another also approach that you can see, or like look at yourself and say, okay, these are the characteristics or personality traits that I really love about people or about myself, and this is really who I want to be, and not to be betraying that personality, that human who you are, right? And for instance, for me back in the day, it was so important to feel like so free, I think that was something that I kept like missing, or I kept like that was missing from my life. And I was thinking, how can I have that freeing,
Yeah,
like freedom everywhere in my life, not only in what I do, but also in my relationships, in my relationship with myself, and having this like so much power to really feel to say, okay, how do I want to live, and where do I want to live, and all of this, right? So that's why you can approach whichever the way that you like, whichever the categories or questions that are important to you. What I think will also happen is that as soon as you start the process, you may not get all of the things like figured out, and that's okay. It's like it may take time. And also, what I have noticed from my own experience is that I felt like I was renewing all of the things every year
yeah,
as I went through the process of like growing and being that person that I really wanted to be, right? And then realizing, if I'm this person, then here are the things that are
mhm,
good for me. Here are the things that are no longer representing who I am, or whatever the thing it is. So you can like start tweaking or like upgrading, whatever the word you want to use. You can do that as you go along.
mhm,
So I think what's really important that I can't stress enough is always doing it intentionally, and also doing it out of this highest version of you who says you are capable of more, or you are able to live the exact life you want to, without feeling like, I can't do this or I can't do that, or feeling like you just need to be surviving or whatever, right? Because I think there's always time for survival, but also time for living, and living it intentionally. That's really, I think, key.
yeah. I think you said it so beautifully, living intentionally and coming from the highest vision of myself, that I think there is nothing more I want to add to that.
Yay. Okay, so amazing. We'll be diving into some of this concepts, and giving you details of like how to apply in your own life. But I think we have given you enough for you to start already applying some of this, and then seeing how it feels for you to do that. Don't allow yourself to get confused or overwhelmed, because you can always figure things out, because there is no right, in quotes,
Yeah.
answer, right? Whatever you choose is going to be yours. So that's why go through this, excuse me, and then let us know if you have questions or you need coaching on this. Until then, we wish you an amazing week, and thank you, Viki. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great week.
Yes, see you next Thursday. Bye.
See you.